On the far side of the globe lies a continent among the others, the continent of Africa. Although believed to be the cradle of life and all civilization, the African continent is very diverse and comprises of 54 countries, each one unique and teeming with culture and traditions, from the hot sub-Saharan desert to wildlife teeming in the African plains. Africa is home to abundant wildlife, natural resources, forests, massive lakes, and waterfalls. It is for this reason that Africa was colonized by several European powers, and yet Africa continues to have its resources extracted. In recent times, the African continent has continued to gain the attention of new emergent superpowers to the east, while continuing to court the United States for funding. This could clearly be seen in the just concluded US-Africa Summit, which was held in December 2022. The last time such a summit was held was back in 2014. The event was attended by 49 African presidents as well as their delegates. Yet the true jewels of Africa are not the resources, but rather the people, especially the future generation. While the developed nation's population is projected to decline, Africa's population is expected to double to about 2.4 billion people in 2050, with half of that population being less than 25 years old. It is therefore important to ensure that the youth are empowered and equipped in solving the challenges Africa faces. This is Africa Rising, a series dedicated to understanding the challenges Africa faces, the misconceptions, as well as solutions needed to move the continent of Africa forward. On the sidelines of the just concluded US-Africa Summit, a statement was made that although Africa has been impacted the most by climate change, Africa as a whole has only contributed very little towards improving climate change. In addition, a recent report regarding responding to climate change, published by the United Nations Environment Programme, suggests that while Africa has contributed negligibly to the changing climate, with just about 2 to 3% of global emissions, it stands out disproportionately as the most vulnerable region in the world. While climate change is global, the poor are disproportionately vulnerable to its effects. This is because they lack the resources to afford goods and services they need to buffer themselves and recover from the worst of the changing climate effects. The truth is, as countries around the world strive to reduce their carbon emissions and curb the effects of climate change, Africa has been at the forefront of progress. Despite being home to only 14% of the world's population, the continent contributes an outstanding 2% of global carbon emissions. This statistic can be better understood when looking at it through the lens of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy is a psychological theory that suggests human beings have a series of needs that must be met before they could move up the pyramid. The base of the pyramid consists of basic physiological needs such as food, water, and shelter. As one moves up the pyramid, psychological needs such as safety and love become more important. In Africa, a great majority of people are still struggling to meet their basic physiological needs. This means that instead of prioritizing environmental conservation and reducing their carbon emissions, they are focusing on meeting their immediate needs. This is why the continent is still responsible for 2% of global carbon emissions, despite the fact that its population is relatively small. It is clear that if Africa is to reduce its carbon emissions, it must first focus on helping more Africans meet the basic physiological needs. To help Africans meet the basic physiological needs in the areas of such as food and water, it presents an opportunity for public and private sectors of the economy to work together to invest in the future of the continent through various means such as increasing agricultural production by investing in modern farming techniques, increasing agricultural trade between African countries to share resources and ensure food security, providing access to affordable housing and supporting local housing initiatives to increase access to shelter, In addition to providing these basic needs such as food, water, and shelter, having access to constant power supply and affordable internet would go a long way in helping Africa. Having constant power supply could cause a powerful ripple effect that could help infuse the overall economy. It would cause an increase in the development of new industries within the continent as the unnecessary overhead on fuel powered generators is reduced or diminished. This would help fuel a massive demand in production and transformation of raw materials into finished goods within the continent, hence reducing the reliance of foreign countries for extraction and transformation. The revitalization of industries would also lead to an increased demand for workers, which would help create new jobs for the youth. With the youths employed, the crime rates would reduce as graduates join the working ranks and soon begin spending, thus contributing to the overall economy. The government wins as well as the GDP rises and as the boosting collection of taxes ensures that public amenities and infrastructure such as roads are developed or improved. Combining constant power supply with having affordable internet would empower the youth to gain new skills online via the vast educational resources available, which would force the citizens to be less reliant on the government for support or handouts. This would also empower the average citizen to be able to compete with other netizens on remote or freelance jobs across the world. This also helps to improve the overall continent. With more reliable internet access, African businesses could expand their customer reach and access global markets, allowing for greater economic growth. Further, access to reliable internet would enable Africans to better access healthcare information and resources, helping to improve overall health outcomes. As Africa rises, it is our hope that the leaders and youth take notice that having constant power supply and affordable internet in Africa would be a major boon to the continent. Access to reliable power and internet would allow African citizens to access educational and job opportunities that they may not have had before. It could also help to connect African countries to the global economy and enable them to participate in it more fully. Finally, reliable internet and power would enable the African population to engage in digital activism and organizing, allowing them to advocate for their rights and interests more effectively. With the basic needs in place, then the government can move on to adopting some of these other goals, including implementing sustainable water management policies, investing in renewable energy sources like solar and wind power to continue to improve electricity to rural areas, protecting and restoring natural forests, educating the communities about the importance of conservation, as well as responsible resource management, and implementing policies that encourage job creation and economic stability to help people provide for their basic needs. Once these hurdles are conquered, then and only then can Africans truly start to contribute towards reducing their carbon emission footprint.